order the Monday, February 6th, 2023 Finance and Budget Committee meeting. Roll call, please.
Chairman DeMoro,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Lopez,
Here.
Councilmember Hodges,
Here.
Councilmember Shields.
Okay, thank you. We have everybody present. First of all is approval of the agenda, but I have some agenda management. We're going to start with item F, 2023-5429, the presentation of the annual comprehensive financial report. And then following that, we're going to, our second, I should say, is item G, the presentation investment portfolio report for the quarter ending December 31st, 2022. So an amended agenda. Motion, please.
I move approval of the amended agenda.
Second.
Thank you. That's a motion and a second to approve the agenda. Do we have any public comments?
Chairman DeMoro, we need to take a roll call vote.
Did I not? I did not.
You gotta
Roll
have
call,
yourself.
please.
Still on vacation.
Yeah.
Councilmember Shields, Councilmember Hodges,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Lopez,
Aye.
Chairman DeMoro.
Aye. Thank you. That's 4 ayes to approve the agenda. Next up, public comments. Any public comments? Seeing none.
Chairman, I had no public comments submitted in advance.
All right, thank you. And then next, I'm going to turn it over to Attorney Brian Head to make an announcement. Sorry.
Thank you, Chair DeMoro. I just wanted to come in front of you and introduce someone to you. We were able to successfully recruit a new attorney for our Chief Counsel of Management and Operations. I want to introduce Ed Rucker to you. Ed will also be, in the future, he will be the city attorney's representative to this body also. So I want to let Ed just introduce himself, tell you a little bit about him. But he started with us today. It's his first day, so he's getting a committee meeting on day one.
I'm happy to be here. I thought it was very courageous of Brian to expose me to his elected officials immediately, but I'm happy to do that. By way of background, I've been lawyering for about 45 years. Can't quit it. I've enjoyed it a lot. I did private practice for a while. I was county counselor in Jackson County when we did the Chiefs and Royals last leases. So go Chiefs. Oh my gosh. I've been the last 15 years the city attorney in Osage Beach at the Lake of the Ozarks, which was a wonderful job, but I wanted to come back to the city, and it was time. I heard about this job in a phone call from David Bushek, who's an old and dear friend of mine, and we had done tax increment financing, and at the interview, David was very kind. He says, well, you could help me out, and I'm like, how can I help you out about that? I'm the one that calls you for the information. That being said, I'm happy to be here. I think Lee Summit is an interesting client, okay? I have a real interest in how you do your jobs, okay? And in making sure that you guys do your jobs. And as Brian and I even talked about earlier today, it's real simple. The mayor and the elected officials are the client. When they're not in the room, I listen to the city administrator. But I always tell the boss what I'm going to do first. Aside from that, if you have any questions, witness protection told me to tell you my name is Ed Rucker.
Mr. Rucker, welcome.
Thank you.
And welcome. Thank you, Brian. All right, next we will start more business, which is the approval of the January 4th, 2023 Finance and Budget Committee action letter. Motion, please.
Here.
Yes.
I move approval of the January 24th Finance and Budget Committee action letter as presented.
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Lopez and second by Councilmember Hodges to approve the January 4th, 2023 Finance and Budget Committee action letter. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Shields, Councilmember Hodges,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Lopez,
Aye.
Chairman DeMoro.
Aye. Thank you. That's 4 ayes. Next up, TMP 2528, an ordinance approving the award. Oh, that's right. Oh, my God.
Bear with him, he
up.
just got off a boat.
Next up, item F, 2023-5429, presentation, annual comprehensive financial report for the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2022 by Ms. Betty Worlman.
Good evening, Betty Wertelman, Finance Director. I want to introduce Kristen Hughes, who is she's been serving as our Senior Audit Director this year. She's with RSM US LLP, our auditor, that's been under contract with us for several years. This is their third year for fiscal year 22 in completing our audit. So I'll turn it over to Kristen Hughes.
Thank you. All right.
And here's your.
All right, good afternoon. Thank you. As Betty mentioned, this is our third year performing the city's audit. So I believe you've been provided with the final audited financial statements. It's the annual comprehensive financial report of the aquifer, and then the smaller bound document is the city's compliance report. We are going to go through, we won't be digging into those documents. What this presentation will be is a summary of those items. But before I jump into the presentation, just so you know, so in the large financial statement bound packet, as far as information that you can find in there, first of all, for every fund that the city maintains, you will find separately audited balance sheet and income statement for each of the funds. At the front of the document, there's a section called Management's Discussion and Analysis, which again, if you don't necessarily have time to flip through the report front to back, Management's Discussion and Analysis is a nice summary as far as maybe why results in 2022 look different than 2021. As I mentioned, there's separate financial statements for every fund. At the front, there's also a consolidated citywide balance sheet and income statement that summarizes and consolidates the impact of all the funds. There's extensive footnote disclosures on various areas of the city, including cash investments, outstanding debt, capital assets, pension, tax abatements, et cetera. And then in the back is an unaudited section referred to as the statistical section, but it does have a 10-year trend history for a lot of areas of the city, including revenue sources, outstanding debt, and just general demographic information. So jumping into the presentation. So first of all, under auditing standards, there are certain areas that we're required to communicate back to those charged with governance at the conclusion of the audit process. You'll see here the first bullet point is that we did issue an unmodified, or what's more commonly referred to as a clean opinion over the financial statements, meaning they're presented in accordance with GAAP with no material misstatements noted. So that is the highest opinion that auditors can issue in the financial statement audit process. The next bullet point here is to just highlight for you if there's anything new or different if you were to compare this year's report to last year's. There was a new accounting standard that the city was required to implement this year relating to leases that just changed from a financial reporting perspective how those are reflected in your financial statements. I'm sorry, do you have a question?
The folks in the back room, we're not seeing what's on the screen. You are, and they're computer down there.
This side is, that side is not.
I don't know if they can hear me. Yes, absolutely. Thank you. Okay, I'm sorry.
No worries, no worries. Technology, that's okay. So are you on the slide that shows the auditor communications? Okay, good deal. So as I was saying on the second bullet point, this is just to highlight if there was anything new or significantly different. The city was required to implement a new standard this year that just enhanced disclosures in the financials around any lease commitments the city has, as well as if there's scenarios where the city is leasing, whether it's land, equipment, et cetera, to another party. The third, fourth, and fifth bullet points there, this is just to let you know that if there were any disagreements, difficulties encountered in the audit, those are required to be communicated to you. There were none, and so that's what you'll see in the auditor communications. Significant unusual transactions, again, if there was something significant or unusual or highly complex compared to a prior year, that would be called out as a unique transaction in the current year, and there were none. The next bullet point, there are areas in the financial statements, management's judgments or estimates where there is a component of maybe subjectivity on how they're accounted for, just meaning management does have to prepare an estimate. So examples of that are going to include, for example, the depreciable lives of capital assets. The city does have to estimate how long its capital assets are going to last, and therefore how long should they be depreciated. So things like that we do take a look at as part of the audit and make sure those estimates appear reasonable, both in accordance with policies the city has in place around those areas, as well as just comparing them to industry standards. And each of the estimates, including things like fair value of investments, pension plan estimates, et cetera, were concluded to be reasonable. The next couple bullet points, we will just provide communications to you if in the course of the audit process, if there are any adjustments that come up during the audit. So what that simply means is from the original trial balance that we're provided with from the finance department, if any adjustments come up, I believe there was one audit adjustment. So what that means is that that adjustment has been reflected in the final audit product. It was not a material adjustment, but just something that came up in the course of our testing. There's also immaterial uncorrected misstatements, so similar, an adjustment maybe is identified during the audit process, but it's deemed to be immaterial by both management as well as us. So you will see those summarized in the auditor communications as far as what the nature of those were. The financials include a footnote pending GASB pronouncements to just let the readers and users of the financials know what additional standards are out there that will be required to be adopted in future years that could impact the financial statements. And lastly, what to note here is the city does submit its financials to the GFOA for the Certificate of Achievement of Excellence in Financial Reporting. That is not a requirement, but it's a great thing the city does as far as applying for this certificate. You will see the current year report includes the certificate that was awarded on the 2021 financials. And I know the city's, Betty has already submitted this year's report for that same review. So again, it's a very detailed checklist, but that is additional disclosures that are in your financial statements to qualify for that program. Here's a summary in the smaller bound packet you've received as the compliance report. So first of all entities that expend more than $750,000 in federal grant expenditures are required to have their auditors also perform what's called a single audit or compliance audit, and that's what this separately issued packet is. Within that document, you will see reports that address significant deficiencies or material weaknesses. So there were no significant deficiencies or material weaknesses reported in the 2022 audit as it relates to both the financial statement audit and then the compliance audit. As a reminder, the purpose of a financial statement audit is not to give an opinion on internal controls. And so you'll see the letter talks about that, but we are under the standards required to communicate to you if we become aware of either of those, and none were noted. For the single audit, as I mentioned, you were required to have one this year because you had more than 750. I believe the city expended about 1.8 or 1.9 million in federal grant expenditures this year. We tested one of the major programs or grants. It was the PRF funds. Just for perspective, that was about 33% of the total federal expenditures this year. The city is a low-risk auditee, which means we are required to audit at least 20% of your federal grant dollars for 2022. The major program, again, for the major program we tested, there were no findings or question costs noted in that testing. Here is a summary of revenue in the city's total governmental funds comparing 2021 on the left to 2022 on the right. You'll see total revenue in the governmental owned funds increased just under $5 million or 3.5%. The largest category you'll see is the green category, which is sales and use tax. I apologize, it does just say sales tax, but that does reflect both sales and use tax in that category. That saw about a $9.5 million increase this year. A portion of that, if you recall, the use tax started in October of 2020. So fiscal year 21 did not include a full 2 months, but 2022 does now. And so of that $9.5 million increase, about $3.5 million is attributed to the new full year of use tax that's being collected by the city. And then sales tax has just continued to see a positive rebound post-COVID in 2022. You'll see property tax revenue also saw an increase of about $1 million, as well as franchise tax. These were slightly offset. Decreases in intergovernmental revenues is the red category. So specifically, in 2021, the city received, again, with the COVID, most entities saw a lot of enhanced or increased federal grant funding specific to CARES. So in 2021, the city had received through Jackson County coronavirus relief funds, and that's why that amount was higher in 2021. Those had already been expended. The city has received funding under the American Rescue Plan Act, and those have not yet been expended, so you'll see that's why there's the decrease in 2022. Also, in 2022 was just a decrease in investments. Most people saw a decrease at the end of the year in their portfolios. Here's a summary of expenditures by function. Again, this is in the governmental funds. You'll see total expenditures this year or in 2022 were very, very consistent to the prior year. There was some movement in the categories themselves that you'll see there in the colored bars, but overall, total expenditures were very consistent compared to the prior year. This next slide shows net position for the governmental activities. So net position is the term for equity for the governmental funds. The largest category is net investment in capital assets. This is what you're going to expect in most all municipalities. This represents dollars that have been put into really infrastructure and all capital assets owned by the city. So that, again, that's predominantly going to be the largest category for any municipality as far as where their dollars are expended. The next category is restricted, meaning there's a third-party restriction on how the dollars are spent in the future. Examples are going to include amounts you have to set aside for future debt service, capital projects because of the revenue source that's paying for them, pension commitments, et cetera. But you will see the city had a positive unrestricted balance in the yellow bar there in both years. This is the general funds, unassigned fund balance, so the city's primary operating fund. And again, fund balance is the term for equity in the governmental funds. Unassigned specifically is the category that is available for discretionary spending, so amounts that have not yet been designated, whether it's by council, third party, et cetera. So the general fund saw a positive increase this year in total fund balance of almost $15 million, and you'll see most of that was in the unassigned category, looking forward to how those dollars, again, are available for spending in future years. For perspective, the general fund, for example, had about $75 million in operating expenditures in 2022. So you can see the amount of fund balance or equity that's available kind of compared to what the approximate amount of annual expenditures is going through there. Here's the operating results for the enterprise fund. So again, that's going to include the city's water, sewer, airport, landfill activity. Operating revenues saw an increase this year. The large majority of revenue of this total $52 million is the city's water and sewer services. So total increased about 8%. A large majority of this is just the annual scheduled rate increase that's contributing to that each year. Operating expenses stayed very consistent in 2022 compared to the prior year as far as the cost of providing those services. These are broken out and presented a little differently just because these funds are the ones where you can determine really what the rates are that are being charged and comparing those to how are the rates doing as compared to the costs that it does take the city to provide those services to residents. Depreciation, we simply highlight that just because that is a non-cash expenditure in your operating expenses. So in the fourth comparison there, you can see what was total operating income across these funds, excluding depreciation, again, just because that's a non-cash expenditure. And you'll see there was a positive overall operating income. And then lastly, these are the funds that do present a cash flow statement similar to what private businesses would do, again, just because these are the funds that where you establish rates, and one area to monitor is if sufficient cash flows are being generated, again, to cover those costs. And you'll see they were positive in both years. I'm happy to go through any questions. I know that's high level, just the city's financials are obviously pretty significant to dig into, but I'm happy to go through any questions on the financials or the audit process itself if you have any.
I'll open it up to questions for the council.
No, sounds like it was a good one.
Good? Okay. Anything else, Betty? All right. Well, thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Kristen. Okay. Moving on, we'll go to item G, presentation of the investment portfolio report for the quarter ending December 31st. Brockhouse.
Good afternoon. I'm pleased to present the investment summary for the quarter ended December 31, 2022. As you are aware, our investment portfolio represents the city's financial resources pooled for investment purposes. The funds are invested with safety and liquidity as the primary objectives. They are invested in a manner to provide a market rate of return while meeting the daily cash flow needs of the city. As of December 31, 2022, the market value of the total portfolio was $256,886,071. 61.77% of the total portfolio holdings was invested in U.S. Treasury securities, 24.36% in U.S. government agency securities, 6.25% in demand deposits, and 4.09% in domestic time deposits. The remaining 3.53% balance is our general obligation bond proceeds that have not yet been expended. This allocation is compliant with the city's investment policy for diversification standards. I would want to note that the city's cash balance at year-end is high due to tax collections. We do, though, make efforts to ensure that these funds are invested as quickly as reasonably possible while ensuring adequate funds are available to meet our cash flow needs. So when we move into next quarter, you'll see some investments early in the month of January to offset the large cash balance. Advance here. We move to page 4 of the report. I want to highlight the 8 purchases that were made during the quarter. They have a total par value of $28,725,000. 7 of those investments were U.S. Treasury securities, and 1 was a non-callable agency security. You'll note that the yields ranged from 3.902% to 4.307%. And if I advance to the next page, you can see that we had maturities. Maturities during the quarter. There were 4 in total. Their total par value was $11 million, and I would note that their yields ranged from 0.125% to 1.617%. On pages 6 and 7 of the report, we have the detail for all of our investments as of December 31, 2022. In accordance with GASB requirements, our portfolio is valued at purchase price with mark-to-market adjustment at quarter end to best represent the value of our portfolio. This requirement is done essentially to avoid misrepresentations in the value of the investments for public entities that may find it necessary to necessary or even desirable to sell investments prior to maturity. With the rising interest rates that we've incurred in 2022, they have had a negative impact on our mark-to-market adjustment for the existing fixed income securities, causing essentially a paper loss. Over time, though, as newer higher rate investments are replacing the maturities with lower rates, the impact will lessen. So for our mark-to-market adjustment at December 31, 2022, we actually had a paper gain of $576,016. I want to remind you that it is the city's general practice to buy and hold our securities until maturity, thereby avoiding any losses at sale of securities. Given the rise in interest rates, the city is currently making efforts to extend its portfolio to capitalize on higher yields by investing in longer maturities. So we're looking to invest more in the 4 to 5 year range. And with the exception of our repurchase agreements, the maturity for investments can be up to 5 years from the purchase date. I'd like to take any questions you may have.
Any questions from the council at this point?
No, just a comment, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I appreciate you hitting the highlights, and I know it's been a volatile market, so appreciate the attention to making adjustments as we go, and at least we're not losing our shirts off. So I can understand there's been a lot of attention put into this, so I appreciate that.
Thank you.
On behalf of the city taxpayers.
Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Betty, did you have anything further? Nothing. All right, thank you. Moving to the next item, TMP 2528, an ordinance approving the award of bid number 2023-029 to purchase masonry services and repair on an as-needed basis for 1 year term with up to 4 1-year renewals to MTS Contracting, Inc., and authorizing the city manager to execute the same for the city. Hi, Brian.
Good afternoon. From all that financial data to talking about bricks, huh? So yeah, we discovered that during the process of going out for bid for this remediation of all the efflorescence that we had out here on this end of the building, and after our condition assessments that we performed, we just have a need. And it's an ability to do these things before they become a big problem, just to kind of tackle them a little bit at a time. Having somebody on call really helps with that. Obviously, anything big, we would still go out for bid, make sure that we're being good stewards. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer. Well, so there's a combination of things, and there's a lot of different theories about how that happens. But if you notice as you look around the building, most anything that's against this conditioned space, so all of the brick that is just to the outside of the conditioned space really doesn't have that problem. It's all the freestanding brick. So what happens is moisture wicks through there, and then there's minerals, calcium, things of that nature that are in the brick and mortar. And as that moisture goes to dry, it actually wicks those minerals through the brick and through the mortar. So anywhere that there's a big fracture, like problems in mortar joints or crack in the brick, that's where you'll see it the most. So if you remember the big, thick, veiny looking lines, that was all related to some sort of failure in the brick and mortar system. But being up against the conditioned space to where it's warm in here or it's cool in the summertime, you're always having that vapor barrier so you don't face those issues as badly. Sure.
Any questions for Brian?
I'm just curious, Mr. Chair. So when was the last time I know there's probably tuck pointing that takes place over time for the structure itself, but those exterior exposed planters and stuff, when was the last time those were repaired or?
It had never been done.
Never, okay.
No,
So over 20 years?
2006, so we're
2006.
approaching 15, 16 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Thank you.
Thanks.
Brian. Moving on, TMP 2553, an ordinance approving the use cooperative contract between the city of Kansas City to purchase truck equipment, fabrication.
We need a vote. previous. Chair,
Yes. Motion, please.
I move for approval of TMP-2528. Move for approval to full city council, an ordinance approving the award of bid number 2023-029 to purchase masonry services and repair on an as-needed basis for a one-year term with up to 4-year, one-year renewals to MTS Contracting, Inc., and authorizing the city manager to execute the same for the city.
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Lopez, a second by Councilmember Hodges, move TMP 2528 to full council with a recommendation of approval. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Hodges?
Aye.
Councilmember Shields? Mayor Pro Tem Lopez?
Aye.
Chairman DeMoro?
Aye. Thank you. That's 4 ayes, moving TMP 2528 to the full council. Next up, TMP 2553, an ordinance approving the use of cooperative contract between the City of Kansas City, Missouri and Crans of Kansas City to purchase truck equipment, fabrication, and installation services as needed, and authorizing the city manager to execute the same for the city. Mark Stinson.
Good afternoon, Mark Stinson, Fleet Manager. This is an additional vendor to the co-op contract with Kansas City, Missouri. And Crans of Kansas City is our vendor for our bucket trucks. And we will be purchasing, once this is approved, a replacement bucket truck for our sign and signal crew. So with that said, I'd answer any questions you might have.
So this is just for one bucket truck, the contract,
So far, this is for that, but it also gives us the ability to buy repair parts and use that company for warranty repairs, additional repairs that our fleet isn't able to handle. So it keeps the line open so that we can take care of that truck in a proper manner.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you. I'll look for a motion, please.
Chair,
Yes.
I move to recommend to the City Council approval of agenda item number TMP-2553, an ordinance approving the use of a cooperative contract between the City of Kansas City, Missouri and Crans of Kansas City to purchase truck equipment, fabrication, and installation services as needed, and authorizing the city manager to do the same for the city.
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion by Councilmember Hodges, a second by Mayor Pro Tem Lopez, moving TMP 2553 to the full council with a recommendation of approval. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Shields? Mayor Pro Tem Lopez?
Aye.
Councilmember Hodges?
Aye.
Chairman DeMoro?
Aye. Thank you. That's 4 ayes, moving TMP 2553 to the full council. Next up, TMP 2558, an ordinance approving the award of contract number 2023-012 to conduct an audit of the city's equipment replacement programs and overhead charges to Matrix Consulting Group LTD, and authorizing the city manager to execute the same for the city. Rick Gentry.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Committee. Rick Gentry, Budget Manager. Item TMP 2558 is before you this evening. If you'll recall, back in June when the city manager presented his budget for the FY23 fiscal year, that included in there was a recommendation for a special audit, and that audit this year was to do an audit of our ERPS program. That's the equipment replacement programs for our fleet, our buildings, our technology services, which is IT equipment licenses. So this, the committee was selected and went through and issued a solicitation. We received 3 proposals from firms that pretty much specialize in this type of an audit and performance review. The committee interviewed all 3 firms and selected Matrix as the firm that will do the best job for this project. The cost for the amount in the budget was, I believe, $80,000, and we'll be bringing forth, as part of the mid-year projections next month, an amendment to increase additional authority to spend the additional money to take us up to the $119,500. So that I'll take any questions.
Okay, thank you, Rick. Any questions? Council? I don't see any questions. Rick, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. That said, I would entertain a motion.
Chair. I move to recommend to City Council TMP-2558, an ordinance approving the award of contract number 2023-0012 to conduct an audit of the city's equipment replacement programs and overhead charges to Matrix Consulting Group Ltd. And authorizing the city manager to execute the same for the city.
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Lopez, a second by Councilmember Hodges, moving TMP 2558 to the full council with a recommendation of approval. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Shields? Councilmember Hodges?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Lopez?
Aye.
Chairman DeMoro?
Aye. Thank you. That's four ayes, moving TMP 2558 to the full council. Next up, TMP 2562, an ordinance approving a statement of work with Analysts International Corporation for the upgrade of server operating systems and Lawson ERP software in the amount of $108,240, and authorizing the city manager to execute the same by and on behalf of the city. Stephen Marsh.
Chairman, members of the committee, good afternoon. Steve Marsh, Chief Technology Officer. The statement of work that we're presenting today is to upgrade the 12 different servers that we have that are utilized to support our ERP Lawson software. The reason that we are going out to an outside firm for this is the complexity of the work involved and the time-sensitive nature associated with the project. The Microsoft Corporation has decided that October of 2023 is when the end of life for the existing server operating system is. After that point, they will not be patching for security or anything like that, so we need to make sure that we get our financial system off of those deprecated operating systems. Going through this process, we're also going to have this firm update patch the Lawson system itself. The firm that is doing the work or proposed to do the work, AIC, was competitively bid in the spring of last year, and it was not to do this specific work, but to provide us an on-call contract for work such as this, and that was approved in July of 2022. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Marsh. Any questions from the council? And so this, all the upgrade patches and everything will be in this contract also going forward?
Yes, for as long as that we remain on Lawson, we have the contract with AIC is for 1 year with 4 additional annual renewals. They were involved actually in the implementation of Lawson in the beginning, back in 2011, 2012, so they're very familiar with our system, which creates a lot of efficiencies when somebody's coming in with the complexity of the system and understanding how it was originally set up. So yeah, it is our intent to keep them with us until we decide when to move away from Lawson.
Thank you, Mr. Marsh.
Certainly.
Seeing no questions, I would entertain a motion.
Chair,
Yes.
I move to recommend to full City Council approval of agenda item number TMP-2562, an ordinance approving statement of work with Analysts International Corporation for the upgrade of server operating systems and Lawson ERP software in the amount of $108,240, and authorizing the city manager to execute the same by and on behalf of this city.
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion by Councilmember Hodges, second by Mayor Pro Tem Lopez, moving TMP 2562 to the full council with a recommendation of approval. Roll call, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Lopez?
Aye.
Councilmember Shields? Councilmember Hodges?
Aye.
Chairman DeMoro?
Aye. Thank you. That's 4 ayes, moving TMP 2562 to the full council. That brings us to roundtable. Any roundtable from the council?
Welcome back, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Thank you. The only thing I would say, go Chiefs. So any roundtable from staff, please.
Mr. Chairman, just want to remind the committee that your next meeting is March 6th at 4 p.m., and that will include our mid-year projections and hopefully our FY24 schedule of fees presentation.
Duly noted. Any other? Being none, I will adjourn this meeting. Thank you.